good? We ready? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us in person, but more so those of you all that is following us online. If you guys would be so kind to go to the Prince of Peace Church, and share the live feed on today, as we're getting ready to go into a healthy dialogue, I believe that is necessary for a time as this and also in our city. But before I get into introducing my special guest on tonight, I want to read to you guys a paragraph from a foreword from Miss Margaret Kimberly on the Black Agenda, written by Glenn Ford. It says, in the best sense of the word, a journalist is someone who brings to public sphere accurate, well-sourced information and righteous analysis. Those individuals speak for the marginalized who can't speak for themselves, and they expose the privileged who are always given opportunities for expression. They point out the faults of those deemed too authoritative to be questioned. If an outlet claims to write all the news that is fit to print, or declares that the democracy dies in darkness, their work should be given more scrutiny than credibility. The journalist should be truly independent and skeptical of official narratives, and Glenn Ford was such a person. His decade of work provided a blueprint for anyone who wants that word to have a real meaning and integrity. So tonight, I want to just put a plug in there. I don't know this author, but I definitely think I've been reading this book. It is definitely something that you guys need to go and put in your library and what have you. So tonight we're going to get right started. We have with us Councilman DeAndre Barnes, as well as the former Vice Mayor, and then we have Councilman Dr. Mark Whitaker. And we're going to just have a word of prayer if you guys don't mind. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come and talk about the social ills of our communities, of our city at large, but mostly important, God, a Black agenda and what that means for the city of Portsmouth. God, we ask that we will be able to just reason together tonight and have a healthy conversation, that those that are tuning in and those that are here will be able to subscribe to what it is that we're trying to relay to the general public. Now, he that hath an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying to the body of Christ. In Christ's name, amen. At this time, before I get into my questions, I'm going to ask these gentlemen, give them 2 minutes to introduce themselves.
I am DeAndre Barnes, born and raised in the city of Portsmouth. I've served on the school board for 2 years. While being on the school board, I was able to accomplish everything that I said I would do. So I moved up to city council. And with 4 years being on city council, I'm very proud of the work that I've been able to do with working with Councilman Whitaker and some others. We've been able to give back to the community and putting things in their hands. As far as one, we now have a summer jobs program that was brought back, and that's serving over 130 children who are working right now, and that's going to be very beneficial, not just to them but to their families. And it's also going to give them the skills that they need to help them in the future when it comes to job opportunities. But more importantly, it's keeping them out of trouble. It's giving them something to do, keeping them out of trouble, and putting some money in their pockets. We always talk about the crime in this city, and that's a big issue in this city. But the way that you deal with the crime is not by hiring more police officers, even though we need more police officers. The way we deal with the crime is that, one, you deal with our school system, in which I was able to fully fund our school system 4 years in a row with the help of this councilman here. We was able to give opportunities. One of the things that we did, I know you guys heard about and I know I only got 2 minutes, but I know you guys heard about the gift cards. What that really was a program to give money back to the community, a stimulus check per se, to help them with the things that they need so that they don't have to look for alternative ways that lead to crime. What we know is when a crime happens today, when somebody goes to jail, when somebody gets shot, the issue didn't start today. It started when they was able to choose that lifestyle. And we got to stop people from choosing that lifestyle. And one of the ways that you address that is you address poverty. Now, I'm not saying what we were doing was going to address poverty, but it's a step in the right direction. It's always a step that you have to take before you fix any issue. So these are some of the things that I did on council. But again, I'm running for reelection, and I know this is about the Black agenda, but you can't have a Black agenda in Portsmouth without DeAndre Barnes on City Council or Councilman Whitaker. Thank you.
First, I want to say good evening to each of you and those who are listening, to Pastor Carswell for allowing us to be here this evening. To each of you that's present, we thank you for being with us. As mentioned, Dr. Mark Whitaker. Some of you who do not know, I'm the grandson of a sharecropper, Junius and Carrie Whitaker. They were out of Scotland Neck, North Carolina. I say that with pride because they were not able to read and weren't afforded the opportunities that I've been afforded. My grandparents on my mother's side, Joseph and Etta McIntyre from Mount Hermon, and they were laborers here in Portsmouth. My grandmother, Etta McIntyre, taught at the Peabody Elementary School here in Portsmouth, which was the segregated Black elementary school. And my grandfather, Joseph McIntyre, worked in the shipyard. I share that with you to let you know some of the substance out of which I come. My father, the late Bishop James Marshall Whitaker, pastored in this community for over 50 years. My mother, Otelia Wainwright McIntyre Whitaker, who is 87 years old and still alive, has labored also. I'm married to Dr. Ingrid Whitaker, who serves on the school board and is a professor at ODU. And we are the proud parents of 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. Our oldest son just completed law school. Our oldest daughter is in PhD program at University of Maryland. Our youngest son just graduated from Morehouse College. And our baby girl will be at North Carolina A&T. I share that with you to let you know that I have a vested interest here in Portsmouth. My children, my family is here. I've served on the school board, was elected in 2002, served until 2014. And during that tenure, we hired the superintendent, Dr. David Stuckwich, did an outstanding job. And then as I was leaving, we were able to bring Dr. Bracy, who has been a fighter for education. And since 2014, I've served on the city council, and we have been able to do some things to try to bring equity. If there's going to be a Black agenda, we have to not look at it from what I call, or what some scholars have called, a social structure, but from a governance perspective, how we see it. And when we speak of it, we're talking about justice and equity. And we know that we still need that today. I presently serve also as pastor of New Bethel Baptist Church in the Cavalier Minor section of Portsmouth. I look forward to the discussion tonight. I want to thank Bishop Barry Randall Jenkins for bringing the topic to the table, and I hope that we're conscious enough to have a conversation that is much needed. And so I look forward to our discussion tonight.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for, first of all, accepting the invite, and thank you to Pastor Carswell and his wonderful congregation that always have an open door for us. I think that tonight will be evident as to there will be many people that will tune in on social media, but may not appear in person. And I think that's one of the issues. Before we get into the conversation, I just want to give you guys the opportunity to even interject if there's anything to interject to. But I think that's one of the issues that we have in Portsmouth. Like, everything is done in secrecy, and we don't want to know, were we this person? And something, a light came on for me, because when I shared that I was supporting both DeAndre and Mark Whitaker for city council, had individuals that was reaching out to me like, wow, what did DeAndre called you? I'm like, neither one of these brothers called me and asked me to support them. I just think that how is it that we say we support Dr. Bracy and we support Portsmouth Public Schools, but then we're so rushed because of personal differences to get rid of individuals that have been good for Portsmouth Public Schools? And for me, that is why I am supporting the both of you, because it just doesn't make sense for us to. And I've had some people that's running for council ask me for their support, and that wasn't a knock to you guys, because I'm sure you were grateful for my support. But I've had some people reach out to me for support, and I explained to them, like, I don't. There's no knock against you. I think you all are wonderful people, but I can't risk what I know we have going for Portsmouth Public Schools. I have grandchildren that goes to Portsmouth Public School. I'm employed by Portsmouth Public School. I have family members that attend that also works for Portsmouth Public School and also attend Portsmouth Public School. So if we can agree in the city that Dr. Eli Bracy is doing a wonderful job, then why would we risk not giving him the support from a city council to help him be even greater at the job that he's doing? So that is why, gentlemen, I brought the two of you all here, because I think that at some point in our life, we all have to grow up. And it doesn't matter who like who and who's friends with who, because for the most part, let's be real, even people that are not here, most of us don't even have dinner with each other each night. So we should never allow ourselves to be pulled to an allegiance that's not serving the greater good. And I can honestly say, regardless of anything in times past, because I know people will love to, one thing about social media, they have a memory. So they bring something up from last year that happened. And I tell people all the time, we need to move in the now. We need to go with what's happening right now. We have a CTE school being constructed from the DAC Center. We need to move in the now. And I'm looking for even more. And I just think that our superintendent deserves a school board and council that will work for the best interest of public education. And we can't honestly say that he's had that, consistently, because we have an election almost every year here in Portsmouth. So I'm hoping that we get it right in this day and time with this upcoming election. Before I go into the question, is there anything that either one you want to share?
Well, I would like to just say that when you speak of education, and many of you know, we just celebrated or commemorated the 70th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. The May 17, 1954 decision, separate but equal, is unconstitutional. It was interesting that during that same week that the Brown May 17th commemoration, there was the budget that came up before the school board. For a lot of citizens, that budget goes over your head. And it's not because of a lack of knowledge. It's just that it is a tremendous document. And within that document, numbers can be presented in a way that publicly it looks like one thing, but when you get beneath it, it's something else. And when Bishop Randall Jenkins speaks of having a council that supports education, there's no need of saying you support education. And for our school district, which is a majority Black school district, this is the Old Dominion, Virginia. Many of you know the resistance that was given to integration in this state, and it still exists with underfunding. During that week, there was an attempt to underfund Portsmouth Public Schools by $5 million. Okay? Y'all hear me now, because the people who were involved in trying to do it are some of the very same ones that will stand before you and say they fully support education. How can you fully support education and you're trying to underfund the school system by $5 million? And because of an issue, because of my experience, I saw what they were doing. When you've worked around folks and you see how they try to shift, you know what they try to do. And when we discovered what they were doing, and DeAndre Barnes was able to contact the superintendent and to have his chief financial officer. Now think about this. The chief financial officer had to come to the school board meeting, to the city council meeting, to confirm what I had discovered, that they were underfunding the schools by $5 million. Councilman Barnes caught on to it. You know, a lot of times issues come up and one of us catch it, the other doesn't, the other catch it, the other does. And the chief financial officer came and told council that he was not aware that council was trying to fund the schools in that way. What I'm saying to you, you got to have persons who are conscious, who are not afraid to speak up. You all know the times that we're facing today. We can't afford to have people who are afraid to speak up. And so I'm thankful you brought up that education issue because it's a real thing.
And another thing too, one of the things you're gonna hear when people running, they're gonna say that they always voted for education, but you got to understand what they mean by that. As somebody who served on the school board, who's been involved in the politics in this city for a very long time, for years before this last 4 years, before I was on council and Councilman Whitaker got back on the second time, and a couple of others, they were basically, whenever the school board came with a budget, they were asking them to lower their budget pretty much. And then they would lower the budget, but you would have meetings where city council meeting would last about 12 o'clock at night because teachers and staff would come to the meetings arguing, trying to get this budget to be fully funded. However, they had to cut the budget, and then they would basically tell you after they cut the budget that they fully funded the budget, which it wasn't a fully funded budget because it was cut when they originally came. It was 3.5 they were asking for, but then when they voted on it, it was 1.2. So they used that as saying that they fully funded the budget. Well, since being on council these last 4 years, and only these last 4 years, because in 2021, that was the first time in history that our school budget was fully funded. Whatever budget they came with, we voted yes to it, and it wasn't changed. Now, that wasn't all 7 people on council. Don't get that confused, because they're going to tell you that they did it. They were arguing about it. They were trying to get it lowered. We just did not let it happen, including this year. And they came to us with a $15 million budget that included a 7% raise for all staff. Now, mind you, for the last 4 years, our school system has got a raise every single year, at least a 3% raise every single year. But this year they wanted 7%, and that included the budget being $15 million. Like he said, the night of the budget that we were supposed to pass the budget, they were trying to sneak something in there where they took $5 million out. We were able to make sure that didn't happen, and we got it passed. But I just want y'all to understand, when you hear in that mayor's forum, there is going to be a person that is not a female. He's going to say he's always supported education. Please understand that is not true. I just want you guys to really understand what that means. Ask him, did he fully fund a budget that did not have to be changed?
And so that you guys that are in person and those of y'all that are watching, now you see my reason, because people always want to assume that someone paid someone off to do something. No, I just have to understand that you don't smite your nose because you're upset with your face. Hello? We all wake up every day and may not like something on us, a pimple. You don't go and get angry and go ahead and cut your whole face off. No, you deal with it, you treat it. So therefore, this is my way of trying to treat the community at large, because again, you sit back and you watch. And I'm gonna be real with you all. And I know I'm not disappointed in an ugly manner, but I'm disappointed in school board members, because it shouldn't take the council members to fight for what you all will be fighting for. So my point that I'm making is, we have school board members that knows what's happening, knows who will vote at the end. You know, like they were just telling you guys, we come to the meeting, and those meetings that are open, we able to see, but then they're closed door meeting. And if I have 2 people with me that I know going to vote the way that I need them to vote, and I'm trying to go against another way, and I can't get DeAndre or Mark Whitaker to flip, then guess what? I was in the room giving these people the devil. But that I'm out in front of the people, I am going to vote with them, so that you all don't know that I was against it. And my point is, it shouldn't just take these 2 gentlemen to always have to tell it. Everybody on that council is aware of what's happening. Everybody on the school board, they know that our mayor, Shannon Glover, and this is not about the mayor, but we standing on truth. We're in the church, so we can't lie. We got to be honest and be integral. They know that Shannon Glover did not support the CTE school and the funding of it, and how he called Tidewater Community College to come to a meeting to try to get them to block and intercede to say, hey, continue to send your kids to TCC. And this is what some of you all don't know as an employee of the bus driver. This is what you guys got to understand. If we have 4 nursing students that got to go to autumn care, then we have some other nursing students or plumbers, electricians, they at TCC. But guess what? School let out at 2:15 or 2:10. Well, the class ran over at TCC. So we have to call Norcom and Churchland High School and Manor High School and said, do not dismiss the children. And then the bus driver was upset. They sent on a hot box. If it's 80, 90 degrees outside, the 100 on the bus. And we can't dismiss school because guess what? We have about 12, 14 students coming from TCC. And this is what you all don't understand. All 12 of them don't go to Norcom. All 12 of them don't go to Churchland High School. All 12 of them don't go to Manor High School. You have 4 or 5 to go to this school. You got 4 or 5 to go to that school. So now we call them shuttle buses. So then we got this bus that got to go here to drop these kids off. It just sets everything off track. So guess what makes more sense? For us to have our own CTE school so that we don't have to send kids here, there, and everywhere. And for the purpose of transparency, even though I'm mayor, and to be honest with you guys, y'all know I like to stand on truth. I think he's an excellent politician at this point because he didn't want that CTE school. But guess what? When the school division was over there doing the ribbon cutting and ceremony for the CTE school, he got right up on that stage and took a picture with him, and he smiled from ear to ear. And everybody like, oh my God, our mayor. Don't even realize that he wasn't there. So this is why I just sit back and I watch, because again, you have educators in our division that don't know. He goes to everything. He's smiling, he's waving, he's doing all this in front of people, and everybody like, oh my God, why y'all just can't get along? That's what we keep hearing from people. Why y'all just, oh man, why are they running against her? I mean, him, why are they doing it? This is why. Some of the things that you all going to hear tonight is the reason why. Because again, in order for things to go forth the way they need to be, we got to do things out of integrity, out of being competent, and having the city at large best interests at stake. Okay, so
let me say this while we're speaking about the CTE program. For many of you, you will remember the old IC Norcom model. It was called vocational ed. Remember, you could go there, electrician, plumber, auto mechanic. Although Norcom is the second best high school, I was at Manor, but I admired what Norcom had. But I want to point out to you again the importance of why you have to have council persons who are conscious and who don't just sit up there going along with presentations. The CTE program, which used to be called vocational ed, but is now called career and technical education. There was a presentation that was made to council. And at that presentation, you had Tidewater Community College there. The president, I believe, was there, and several other officials. And there was an attempt to try to pit the Portsmouth Public Schools CTE program against the TCC program, unbeknownst to the council, until there was some dialogue that took place, that if you were listening keenly to what was being said, that's how I was able to realize that what they're trying to do is to cancel out the school's CTE program and just keep Tidewater in place. Now, all of you in here and those listening, you know that our children need as much as we can give them. The state has already underfunded the schools. We have to give them every opportunity that they can get. I taught at the college level at Virginia Tech for 6 years and Hampton for 20. I realized college is not for everyone, and that is nothing to be shameful about, that everyone doesn't mature at the same level. And so we have to have opportunities for those who want to go and those who don't. We need it in our public schools where you don't have to qualify to get in. At TCC, there are some qualifications, and also that there's opportunities to expand it to our adult community as well. And so I say that because, again, there were those on council who knew what was going on and were participating in it, and we're going to allow it to happen. But again, because of conscious council persons, we were able to stop it to the extent that one of our senior state representatives walked out of the meeting and discussed, Senator Lucas, at what was being attempted. And the whole Tidewater Community College contingency, when they realized what was going on, they walked out. It would have never happened if you didn't have conscious council members up there. So be careful when you are presented things that you don't have the full facts of, and persons try to portray as if they're supporting something. Just go check out the record. And all of this is on video for you to see as well. Thank you.
So those of y'all, and thank you, Councilman Vernon Tillage, for being here tonight. But for those of you all, again, that goes back to when you think about it, when we're mature, what do you want in a council member? Do you want your BFF, your homie, your homegirl, somebody that you go out to eat with? Or do you want someone that's conscious to the issues that plague you and your family? And I don't know about you all, I'd rather have someone that's going to be cognitive of what's happening for my and my family's betterment than for me to be able to say I'm friends with them, if that makes sense. We got to get out of trying to just be friends with people. We got to really go back and look at what's happening. So let's jump right into this, guys. And we're going to be all over the place tonight because these things matter, okay? What does a Black agenda look like for Portsmouth? Dr. Whitaker, and then you.
I'm going to first make sure that we're clear on when we talk about a Black agenda. I have a former schoolmate. We were in law school together at Ohio State, Dr. Greg Carr. Many of you will see him on Sirius XM on Saturdays. He has Nubia, Dr. Karen Hunter. Dr. Carr got his law degree and then went on and got a PhD in African studies there at Temple University. He uses a term called social structure and governance structure. He says in order for us to understand each other, we have to understand it from a social structure, that is how others see us as Black folks, and from a governance structure, that is how we see each other. How others see us and how we see each other are two different things. And because we see each other in a different way than others do, because this whole term Black, as we know, is a social construct. It was something created, and it was something created in a negative way. And so we have had to transform it into that which is positive. So James Brown comes out and says, I'm Black and I'm proud. And so to have a Black agenda, it is not an agenda where we are dismissing others, but when from a governance standpoint, how we look at it is that when we talk about a Black agenda, we're talking about that which is social justice and equity. And the thing about us is that when we rise, we pick everybody else up with us also. Because when the public schools rise, it wasn't just Black children that rise. It's all children that rise. When our businesses are properly funded, all businesses rise. So when we talk about the Black agenda and the importance of it, it is from a perspective of equity, fairness, being treated right, given an opportunity to do well or fail. we ought to at least be given the opportunity to fail. We don't even get that in many occasions. When you see a city spending $500 million in procurement contracts and Black folks only get 1%, then a Black agenda has to be there. When you see a report coming in the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education, where Duke University is now reporting that the wealth gap between Blacks and whites is wider, and they're saying it's not based on educational attainment anymore, because they're saying that a Black with a higher education degree in higher education has less wealth than a white with a high school diploma. So it's not about education, it's about gifts and inheritances. And that comes to be an equity issue. And so with the Black agenda, we have to make sure we're speaking to it from an equity standpoint. What does that mean for Portsmouth? That means that when we fight for minority contracting, not just on the council, they're on the school board, and we put in place a program, we do it because it's equitable. When we talk about Black folks' property being taken on Sugar Hill, how can you overlook that and then say we together? No, you can't do that. And so we're talking about equity. That's what it means for Portsmouth.
Well, you know, on this subject, going behind Mount Whitaker, that's a hard thing to do because this is his baby. But I will say this: you got to be intentional. You definitely got to be intentional. I was out canvassing in the Craddock area, and I met this older Black man, and somebody was canvassing with me so that they can repeat this story. But he was telling me he asked me why was I running, and I talked about, you know, a lot of the things that we done for the Black community, and I said when it comes to Blacks getting a seat at the table, we've been able to do that, and we're working on that even more now. And he was telling me, well, you know, I try to make sure that I'm fair. I make sure I give everybody an opportunity. I try to equal out the situation. So I told him, I said, well, I wonder how many Black people didn't get an opportunity because of you. And I say that because when we need to be at the ham of this discussion. If we're not at the ham of the discussion, we're not making sure that our people getting those opportunities. And that's not to say, like Councilman said, that we're against anybody else or we don't want anybody else to come up. But when you are in a situation where you're not getting those opportunities, when you're getting 1% of the contract, we need to be the ones at the table discussing what the issues and trying to figure out why we're getting 1% of those contracts and why we can get more. And that comes with being intentional, making sure that people like us, and I know when we talk about the small business and the Black business, we always include everybody else in it. But for me, I want to see, and we've been able to do that and put some language in there where it just says Black, because at the end of the day, when we come up, just like you said, when we fully fund our schools, of course, the majority of them are African Americans, but our white kids, our Asian kids, and everybody else comes up with it. Because ultimately, when it comes down to it, it's about poverty. And if we can fix those issues, then we're gonna have a sparing city. One thing I always say to my basketball team, because I coach, we're only as good as our worst person. So we have to make them better as well. And right now in our community, African Americans aren't getting those opportunities. And this is the Black agenda, so we got to talk about it. We got to specifically point out the Black people that's not getting opportunities. We always, when we get in position, when we're on council, when we're on the school board, when we're the CEO, we always want to make sure that we give everybody else an opportunity. We always want to pull everybody else up. And then we call the white people racist when they do it. Listen, for me, I don't think they're racist. And here's why I don't think they're racist. They're doing what we should be doing. When we get an opportunity, just like when they get opportunity, they pull their white brothers and sisters up. We don't do that, and we need to start being intentional about doing that. I was sitting in a council meeting, a closed session one day, and I wasn't even going in this direction, and we was talking about boards and commissions. And one person says because I looked at the boards and the commissions, and they said, and it was about the crime commission that we supposed to have. And I looked at it and they said, I said, this is a horrible group of people that we're trying to choose for this crime agenda. I mean, for this crime commission. And one person who was black said, well, we're not going to put all black people up there. But who understands the issue more than a black person? And that wasn't even the direction that I was going in. But the fact that that person, I would expect one of my other brothers and sisters to say it, but somebody who looks like me said that. And too often, that's how it is when it comes to our issues in the community, when it comes to schools, when it comes to economic development, when it comes to contracts. We are always saying it's not going to be just black people up there. Sometimes it do need to be us, and it needs to be intentional. It needs to be us putting us in those situations, and you can't do that without us at the helm of that discussion. Thank you.
I'm glad you guys brought that up. As you all know, I'm also on the Parks and Rec board, and I think about 2 years ago, when I first got up there, we had someone on the Parks and Recreation board, and you all know Parks and Recreation is for recreation and the parks and games and all those things. We had an individual on the board that was almost 80 years old. And she would come, she didn't know anything about a baseball, a basketball, a park, anything. And I think that's the issue. We're just padding things and pushing things to be able to say we have people there. But if we have people in place that can't get the job done, that's a problem. And I want you guys to be mindful, because you all know when I start out, we talk about education, right? Well, if we are saying, if we're serious about a black agenda, then there are, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, there's 7, maybe 8 black individuals running for 3 seats. I want y'all to watch that now. And I ain't even count anybody else that's running. We have about 7 or 8 black individuals that's running for 3 seats. So I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I would think that all 7 or 8 of them know that all of them can't get a seat. So what happens to going with who's best or what's best for the city? And if we keep starting over, I hear a lot of people talk about the city manager, and we had 6 of them in the last 3-4 years. Then when will we ever get to the place to actually see something being done if we keep recycling and changing out? And that was just food for thought. Again, you all, please share the Prince of Peace live feed on your page so that others can hear this conversation. Number 2, how do black business owners, I'll start with you, DeAndre. How do black business owners get a seat at the contracting table of Portsmouth? And what have you done policy or advocating wise for this?
Well, one of the things that you have to do, because you heard this a lot in this city, and you heard a lot from people who look like us. They'll say, I don't get involved in the politics. I don't like to do this. I don't like to do that. Well, you if you don't get involved in the politics is gonna get involved with you regardless. So one of the things you have to do as a black business is that you have to put people in place that support, that you know will support you. While on council, I don't think people understand how many times Councilman Whitaker and myself had to fight to keep certain black businesses open because they wanted to do to our black businesses what they did to Norfolk, close a lot of them down, or they wanted to make hard stipulations, put them on them so that they can close them down. I'll give you an example. Some of you probably know some restaurant owners. They had a task force going around last year trying to cite them on things so that they could close them down. If they had a fight or some type of incident, they was trying their hardest to close them down. When we had white restaurants where people was killed at, shot and killed but they want to shut people down because they call the police because somebody was arguing too loud. This is why you need good people in office, and you need people who understand the community. Now, I'm somebody, I don't go to lounges, I don't go to clubs, I don't drink, I don't smoke, but I understand what that does to our community. And what I mean, what that does to our community, those black businesses hire black people. Their majority of their staff is black, and if they're putting them to work, they're helping them take care of their families. They're not. That means they're not out on the streets doing stuff to our community. Because I tell you what, if people don't have money, they can't make money, they'll find it some way, and that means sometimes breaking in your house, robbing you. So we got to make sure that we're saving our black businesses and our black communities, but our black businesses got to also make sure that they're saving us. And they have to be involved in the political process. They have to encourage, and they have to donate in the political process. And what I mean by that, you heard this often. People say, you, they own this person because they're donating to their campaign or something to that effect. What I do know is that when you look at these white businesses, they donate to the candidate who directly helps their campaign. I mean, it helps their business or helps them, or if they know they're going to open a business next year or they need some help with opening that business or need somebody voting for it, they donate to that campaign. When it comes to us, our black businesses, we don't do that. And we say, I support you. I put a sign there, but I ain't got no money for you. And again, please understand that I want y'all to take that the right way. Just because somebody donates to you don't mean they're buying you. What they're doing is they're supporting your campaign because it costs to run a campaign. It costs to buy signs. It costs to pay for people who canvass for you. It costs to post on Facebook. It costs to do a lot of things. You need that type of help, and this is how people can get a seat at the table. Getting a seat at the table means having somebody there who represents you, who supports what the community does, supports what you do. Because just because you may open up a restaurant and I know you, that means also if Pastor DeAndre wants to open up a restaurant too, I'm more likely to support him because I know that he is going to be supporting the community. He's right in the mix of Brighton, the Brighton neighborhood, which needs people like him who's opening up their church for the community so they can find out what's going on. So I think this is how you get a seat at the table, by one, electing good people and people that you know that's going to support you, but not only support you, support the community. Because sometimes we pick people who only support us, but then go support the other community without supporting us. So that's how you get a seat at the table.
I would like to share a handout if you, with the gentleman up front, pass this out. All right, thank you. And so we were talking about having a seat at the table. I wanted to show you something that I hope you will understand the ramifications of what you're seeing before you. What you see here, first of all, the city of Portsmouth became majority black, okay, and we're talking 51%. According to the census around 2000, some of the census data shows starting around 1998, it becomes a majority black city. Look at what has happened when you talk about getting at the table. Okay, so the city is chartered in 1752 as a town. It's not until 1968 that you get your first blacks elected to city council, Dr. James Holly and Mr. Raymond Turner. That represents 216 years of no Black presence or voice. In 1980, there's one Black on city council. In 1984, that's when you get your first majority Black city council. Dr. Holly, Tip Corprew, Reverend Beamer, and Senator Lucas. That's not a surprise because that's when Jesse Jackson runs for president, and there's this major push in the Black community to get out and vote. Notice that in 84, you get a majority Black city council. Notice what happens 2 years later. There's a white lash. You get a majority white council returns. And then in 90, 92, majority Black, notice for only 2 years. Then it goes back majority white. The point is, it's flip-flopped. Okay? It's flip-flopped. We have not had the solid representation in this city representing our interests. And when you put it together, you will note that there's only been a majority Black city council in Portsmouth for only 14 years, which is about 5% of the time that this city has been present. That has major ramifications. Now, a mistake that we make is when we see up here majority Black, and when we talk about Black at the table, the issue has not always been that we have not been at the table. We have been at the table. We just have lost consciousness at the table. That is, we can't just say just because someone is Black that they're going to represent our interests. And that's what has happened to us on so many occasions, on the school board as well as on city council. And so I want to point out to you that when we talk about bringing Blacks to the table, you got to make sure you have mindsets that are read and critical in thinking, that are unapologetic for standing on what is right and what is true, that we have been excluded. And note here, we have been in positions on EDA, Economic Development Authority. We've been at the table. But I've seen instances where things come to us from EDA with Blacks at the table, and the Black presence in contracting is not there. We had majority Black on the PRH, Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority, when I was a liaison. That Black PRHA board kept a white law firm in place for 70 years. Okay? And when we broke it up, folks Black and white got upset because of consciousness. Okay? And so the issue is not whether we're at the table, it's what we do when we get at the table. And if you have people out here who the only battles that they have had is basically fighting each other, that's all you fought, fighting us, because the battle ain't with us. And this isn't my first rodeo with this. As a student at Virginia Tech, president of the Black Student Alliance, we dealt with contracting. They weren't hiring Black professors, and I spoke out against it. They weren't funding Black organizations. And the same reaction I see from Black folks in Portsmouth of telling me, hey, don't speak too loudly, you rocking the boat. You can't be afraid to rock the boat. The boat was already rocking before I got on it. And note here, the same thing when was there at Ohio State. They were not hiring Black professors. That's a contracting issue. And so what I see here in Portsmouth and what I've stood for, and when Bishop talks about what policies have we put in place. Well, when I first got elected to the school board, that was one of the first questions I asked, where are the checks going? And before Black folks in Portsmouth became conscious enough to put a majority Black school board on, when I was on the school board initially, in 2002, you had Dr. Daniels, Mr. James Bridgeford, and myself. in a majority black city. And then you ask, why is it that we are not getting why aren't we at the table? Because we have not used our political power. That board did not become a majority board until about 10 years later. They blocked us from getting minority contracting until we got a majority black council, a school board, and was able to put it in place. Same thing with the city council. Okay. Here it is. We've had 2 disparity studies. We got black attorney, black city managers, black council, but black folks only getting 1% of the contracts. And we at the table. So the issue becomes, what do we do when we get at the table? And what I want to show you all when you look at this is look at what we have done with our power. We've given it away. We got one of the major black organizations in the city, MLK, endorsing Mark Hugel. What has he done for us? And then he gets up there in council and tries to undercut the schools by $5 million. Tries to get the CTE program cut out. And we put them up there. Black folks put them up there. Okay? And so until we understand the power that we have and stop giving away, we still have not recovered from 2016. We haven't recovered as a people from 2016 when we voted out Kenny Wright. The biggest mistake we made. Kenny, see, is a difference in the back room and what y'all see going on in the public. See, I saw what Kenny was doing in the back room, but what we haven't learned to do is put personality aside. We look at personality instead of policy. And when we start looking at personality and look at how we vote and what we stand for, then we'll be at the table right. But I hope you all look at this and pass it on and see how we have given away power when we had the opportunity to make a difference. Here we are sitting in 2024, and black folks still aren't getting contracts in this city as they should. And then you want to come here and talk about unity. How you measure it. I wish someone would tell me how you measure unity, but I can tell you how you measure whether we're getting contracts or not. And y'all better be very careful about this unity, because class collaboration has been a part of this country for a long time. And class collaboration means that rich folks, poor folks, middle class folks will get together, but it may not be for your interests. And we better wake up, because as y'all saw last week, they're digging in deeper and deeper. This is not a time to get caught up in personality, but we better start looking at how folks vote and also who's putting people up to run. All these folks popping up, who's funding them? Who put them up? What have they stood for in the past? What have they fought outside of Portsmouth? Look at their records. Maybe good people, but goodness does not always translate into consciousness. And so the way we get to the table is being intentional and being conscious and stop giving up power when the Lord blesses us to get it.
Right back to you, Dr. Whitaker. What influence, or not just necessarily influence, but how much say does City Council have with PRHA when it comes? Because my issue is this: as I sit on the Parks and Rec board and I see people coming in, and we've had people asked to be put on the agenda, and they're talking about dog parks. They want dog parks. They want some dog parks. And I brought to the attention that Prentice Park doesn't even have a play park. And then when we go to look at the actual Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing Authority communities, I was out Lexington Place one evening, and as I drove by, all the kids were just in the field and they were just throwing football. They had nothing to play with. So my question is, if we've had a predominantly black board and commissions with PRHA, how did we allow in the last 10 years to not have proper playgrounds for those communities first and foremost, and then just in general, and then the basketball courts. How so? Is there anything that can be done? Because the premise was basketball courts attract crime, but then in my mind, I'm like, but we can't punish a whole community behind just a few individuals.
I think again that you have to look at, first of all, who are we putting on the boards? Okay. Um, Again, the error that was made in 2016, you will note that when Mayor Rowe came into office, after being supported by a lot of black folks in our community, okay, when he came into office, one of the things he did was that he changed the makeup. He got council to change the makeup of PRHA, who was serving. Even the liaison from council was changed. Okay. So elections have ramifications. The issues you raise in like a basketball court or a dog park, those aren't issues that if you got a conscious board on PRHA, that should not even have to come to a council. That's something that PRHA deals with. But if you don't have the right mindsets up there, then you start running into neglect, which our communities have faced. And so again, I think it comes down to who we put in office and their consciousness level. And that's something that the community needs to check out. Okay? When you start seeing different councils, and we know what happened with 2016 and that council shifted, you ought to go back and read and check out who was placed where by who. Who did that particular council that became a very conservative white council, who did they start appointing? When there are vacancies on council, who do these conservative white council members bring on to fill those vacancies? Okay? Those are things that we have to look at. And when you look at it critically and get outside of personality, then you'll see that we need to put people in place that aren't just talking all of this coming together unity stuff. Dr. Howard Thurman, one of the major theologians, he said you got to be careful about unity, because that in itself can become idolatry. Because what you're coming together to do, just to come together? Okay. No, you got to come together to make a difference. And that's what I know I've been trying to do. And when you try to do that, folks are going to like it and some aren't, but you got to be true to yourself. And you got to be conscious and alert and awake. And when you have that, I don't think you would have to be dealing with those type of issues that you're talking about, at least not at a council. The council deals with policies. And that's what you ought to be, putting people in place who will put some policies in place to get things done that need to get done. And it's a council. It's not a mayoral council makeup. In this city, the mayor has just one vote, just like the whole council. A lot of folks out here coming to council don't realize that. Okay, and so when we start appointing and put in place, you need to look at that, and your council members are going to be the ones that do that.
Two quick last questions, and then if those of you all out there would like to ask a question, that's fine. DeAndre, did anybody online have a question that you saw? Okay. This question directly for you, DeAndre, and of course you can piggyback if you want to, Dr. Whitaker. How do we address the crime epidemic in Portsmouth, and what do you say concerning black on black crime?
Well, I'll address that part first. For me, and I know we heard this often, black on black crime. There's no such thing as black on black crime. It's used to take away the significance of the issue itself. And what I mean by that is proximity is what crime is. And what I mean by that, when you live in a house and you have a brother and a sister, you tend to fight more with your brother and sister. When you live in a community with more black people, you tend to fight more with black people. If you look at the statistics, White people have a high rate against white people. Asians have a high rate against Asians. And of course, African Americans have a high rate against African Americans. That's because they live in the same community. They tend to go to the same schools. They tend to go to the same churches and all that. That's why you have people with the same race tending to commit more crimes against one another. And as far as the crime issue, the way that you address it, one is you deal with the root issues. Like I said earlier, when a crime happens today, when somebody goes to jail, when somebody gets shot, somebody gets stabbed, whatever it is, the issue didn't start that day. It started when they was able to choose that lifestyle. So you have to put things in place to prevent them from choosing that lifestyle. You have to make sure that you have good jobs, because one of the main issues of crime is poverty. But you can't expect a community to come out of poverty when all we're doing is building car washes and said this is what Portsmouth is. You can't expect us to come out of poverty when all you're doing is building storages and saying this is a great opportunity, a great moment for Portsmouth history. And I'm saying that because we're building a storage right now on Effingham, and somebody's about to come in front of council again. We don't have a lot of space in the city, and we can't keep using our property to just build anything. It has to be quality jobs to help families be able to take care of their families. But not only that, it allows them to pay into the tax system that we have, which ultimately gives us money for our school system, what gives us money to lower our taxes, because we talk about lowering our taxes. It gives us money to have services for our elderly. It gives us money to do things with public safety. It gives us money to do things with our children. And also, to touch on that matter, what you also do is give people opportunities. What we've been able to do on council was give 130 children from the ages of 16 to 18 jobs. That is important because that's where the issue is when it comes to crime amongst our youth in this city. We are also able to give families free summer camp. 400 families got free summer camp in this city. And that's not just kids that live in low income communities. There's kids who from all over the community. And what that does is that it gives somebody who may have a lot of money, somebody who's in the middle class, and somebody in the lower class. It puts those kids together and allows them to learn from each other and build relationships. So one day when they're in high school, they'll remember, oh, I was dealing with this person. I was cool with him in summer camp. He stayed in Churchland. I built a relationship with him, and we can understand one another's issues and one another problems. These things are important when dealing with the crime issue in our city. You can't arrest your way out of crime, and you can't prosecute your way out of crime. You have to deal with the root issues. I hear all the time people say we need to arrest these people that did this and did, and we do. We do need to arrest people who committed crimes, but that's not going to stop the crime. I mean, that's not going to stop it in the future, because what you have is when you take away this gang leader, it's going to be somebody next to take his spot. When you take away this person from the street, it's going to be somebody there to take care of their spot. So you have to stop them from wanting to join a gang, period. You have to deal with the root issues, the root causes. And poverty is the number one reason for all of this. So you got to deal with those issues. I remember going to a funeral of a 15-year-old, and I was listening to some of the speakers, one being the police chief that we had at the time. And they were saying how stupid the kids were. And we were in Brighton, actually, at a church. And they were saying how stupid the kids was for doing. And I'm not talking about our current police chief. I'm talking about one we had before. And they were talking about how stupid the kids was for having guns and all these type of things. And what I learned is that from coaching and dealing with children is that you can't go in and say these type of things. You got to understand why they're doing these things. And one of the things I said when I came up to speak is that, listen, I'm not going to tell you to put down your gun because I don't know the reason why you have it. What I will say to you is come talk to me and tell me what I can do for you to make you want to put down that gun. And what we got to do is deal with the issues in our city to make those people to not want to choose a life of crime. When we deal with those things, when we deal with the root issues and the root causes of why they commit crimes and why they choose that lifestyle, then we can truly get a handle on what's happening in our city and crime in general.
All right, the last question, DeAndre, and this will be for both of you all. Dr. Whitaker, you can finish. What is your overall vision, Barnes, for Portsmouth? What is your overall vision for the city of Portsmouth to be a healthy, thriving city? And who are you supporting for mayor and why? If you don't want to disclose, that's fine.
Well, for me, I want to continue to do the things that I've been doing on council. Like I mentioned earlier, I push for 130 kids to get those summer jobs. I push for free summer camp for 400 children. I push for Charles Pete Field to get redone. I want to be able to continue to do those things. And also when it comes to fully funding our educational system, that's something I failed to mention. You got to make sure that you always fully fund education. And the reason why that's important because it's it tells you when you do the research that schools who are fully funded are more likely to have kids that go to college, choose technical education, opposed to dropping out of schools. Um, this is what I envision for the city. I envision us having quality jobs for our residents, not jobs that's at a car wash or at a storage facility, but quality jobs because this is what's going to take our children out of poverty and take families out of poverty. I would like to see us with new and remodeled recreational centers with great programs because this is what's going to help our kids um, get the knowledge and things that they need to succeed in life. Well, I know when people see rec centers, they always look at it as, oh, it's some kids playing basketball or kids playing football or whatever the case may be. But the thing is that no kid is coming to a rec center because we're doing math. So you got to get them to a place that they want to go so you can teach them things that they need to know. And this is what I envision. This is important to me. And I'll answer that question when it comes to who I'm supporting for mayor. As somebody who's been on council 4 years, I've served with two different councils. And one of the growing trends was that myself and this guy beside me was the people who was dividing the council or dividing the city. Um, we were able to do a lot with the first council, and then we moved to another city council that included one person who's running for mayor who had a lot to say my first term on city council, and another person who was running for mayor running for council who from all intentions we believed that was going to be on one of the person's sides that was on council. Despite that, myself and this person right here who they said couldn't unify anybody has been able to work with that person who had a lot to say against us and the other person who we believe to be a supporter of the current mayor. We've been able, despite those things and despite what people say about us, to work with people and get things done at the best interest of the community. Because without those two people, who I'll go ahead and say it, Vice Mayor Lisa Lucas Burt and Councilman Vernon Tillage, our kids wouldn't be working right now. We wouldn't have the free summer camp. Our schools wouldn't be fully funded. That 15 million that they just asked for wouldn't have happened. And I think that's because, well, I know that's because one of those who are running for mayor, which is Vice Mayor Lisa Lucas Burt, has been a person that has set aside whatever issues that she may have for the betterment of the community. And we've been able to work with her. And I'll say this, we've tried to work with Mayor Glover. I've sat down, I've shut the door after a meeting one day and had it out, and we cussed at each other and all this. And I said, at the end of the day, whether you like me or not, when it comes to doing what's best for the community, you don't have to like me. We don't have to get along to do that. You supposed to do what's best for the community despite those issues. And for a good 2 meetings, I thought we were on the right track. But he would send people up to council meeting to say certain things negatively about me. Why I sit there and knew that they were saying it because he told them. I sat there, I said, I'm gonna try to just still be cool because I want to do what's right for the community. I'm gonna leave it alone. And I think those who follow council meetings, they'll see the first 2 years and the last 2 years, as the young people say, I haven't been coming at that person a lot like I did the first time. Even though he was completely wrong those first 2 years, I tried to do it differently because I was hoping that we could work together. Because this is what everybody was talking about. Everybody was talking about that unity that they wanted to see. And even that didn't work. And now that person has had issue with every single person on council, including his friend Mark Hugel. So because of that reason, when it comes to Vice Mayor Lisa Lucas Burt, I may not agree with everything that she did or done. We may have had some things in the past that I thought she was wrong on, but I feel like I can work with her. I feel like that despite whatever the issue is, that I know that if I go to Lisa, because I call her Lisa, your vice mayor, and I say, this is important for the community. I think that we need to do this. This will help with the crime or whatever the issue may be. I think that whether she votes with me or not, it will be because she feels that's what the best choice is and that she's trying her best to work with me. I just want to be able to work with who's ever on council and who's ever the mayor. And she's the only one that I feel that I can work with. If you look at all of the issues that's happened in the 4 years when it comes to council, whether it be things that were brought up that we just didn't know about and people expecting us just to go along, just to get along, or whether it be trying to debate a real topic, it's been because of one person. And personally, I like a good fight. I grew up in Portsmouth, Dale's home around the corner. I don't mind getting in a good fight, but I don't want to have to fight all the time. And I feel like if we elect Mayor Glover another time, we're going to have to continue to fight for another 4 years. And I feel like if we elect Vice Mayor Lisa Lucas Burt, I feel like whether we agree or not, things will go smoothly. Our city will look better. We won't have those arguments because you don't necessarily agree with somebody. And I know from a public standpoint, and I know I'm going long, but I know from a public standpoint, everybody says we want to see us getting along. The truth is that you can't make somebody get along with you that doesn't want to. And that's the issue that we have here. Me and Barry said in the last couple of years, Barry said some stuff about me. But I'm here speaking anyway. I've never said anything about him. And I'm still here. Some people in this room have said some bad things about me, but I haven't said anything about them. And if they had came to me with an issue that they needed help with, I'll be the first one to help them. People tell me all the time, why do you help these people who be online talking about you? Because it ain't about me. It's about the issue that they have. And a lot of times those issues deal with the citizens of Portsmouth, not them. So I don't mind jumping in and helping. And that's the reason why I'm supporting Vice Mayor Lisa Lucas Burke for mayor.
Again, I want to thank Bishop Randall, Reverend Coswell, for having us tonight. I shared with you at the beginning my background and that of my grandparents. That's about as far back as I can go record-wise. I say that because when I look at where my grandparents were and where I am today, I know I've been truly blessed. I've been blessed because I was brought up in a wonderful village. My parents, my church, my community. And I want the children of Portsmouth to have the same, if not more, opportunities than what I had. Able to go off to Virginia Tech on a full basketball scholarship. So that's why when I first got on the school board, I pushed for middle school sports, which is in place still today, because I knew the value and what that could do for our children. The vision for our children and education, because I know the importance of education. If it weren't that important, then the slave master would have never forbidden the slave from reading. And you never would have seen the massive resistance that you saw in Virginia in the 50s to integration if it wasn't that important. And you wouldn't see what's happening today with the attempt to move funding from public schools to private schools if it weren't that important. And so I see education as being a pillar in this community, a change maker as it has always been. And because of that, I will continue to always fully support. When that superintendent brings that budget to the council, there's no adjusting of it. Funded like he has requested it to be funded. And the record will show that's what I have consistently done. When it comes to economic development, I'm for equity. I don't think that a black man here in 2024 needs to be apologetic for speaking out against injustice. And I think it's an injustice, again, that we are getting 1% of the contracts. I think it's an injustice that we've had 2 disparity studies on the city council and not one of the recommendations have been implemented. But yet we talk about all of this revenue that's flowing into the city. And I hope we are conscious enough to know that revenue has always flowed into Virginia, into Portsmouth. That's not the issue of the revenue flowing. The issue is how is it being distributed? And we have been talking about all the money the casino is bringing into the city, but still, even with that, there was an attempt to underfund the schools by $5 million by the mayor and Hugo. And I say that without stammering. Therefore, equity has to be at the table for economic development. You're about to see one of the major developments that will occur in our lifetime. That is the development of the waterfront. That's going to be whoever gets that contract, that's going to be generational wealth. Their children going to live off of that. I would think that black folks would want to have an agenda that says when you distribute that, just like when Marion Barry in D.C., okay, and Maynard Jackson in Atlanta, they're known because they took care of the people. And we shouldn't be apologetic about that because after all, our tax dollars are going to support the roads that those businesses are going to drive on. Our tax dollars are going to support the police when something happens. When there's a fire, our tax dollars are going to be there. And so we need to be there at the table as well. And so I believe in the education, in the equity. And I also believe that all of our communities are valuable, that it shouldn't be that just a certain sect of the community gets benefits. It should be that we all rise together. And when we do that and we can see the humanity of each other, that's the vision, that we got to see the humanity of each other in those areas. The last question, Bishop asked, who am I voting for? I'm voting for Lisa Lucas Burke. And I told her that I support her. And I support her because the community has been greatly deceived by Shannon Glover. It's been greatly deceived. Anytime you have power, because as you all know, some of you in here participated in the recall attempt, in the re-election, in the election. And so there was Councilman Barnes and I in the minority. It was what, 5-2? 5-2. They could have put in place the city manager at that time. They could have done whatever they wanted to do with a 5-2 vote. But look at what has happened. Look at what has deteriorated. That the power he had, because he had handpicked some folks to run. But now, the ones that came up there with him and the ones who were calling for us to be removed, we're working together. Because we can see the truth. Some of you can't see the truth because your pride is in the way. You know you were wrong, but your pride is in the way. But we still love you. We still love you. Okay. And so I'm voting for her because, number one, I think she knows how to run a meeting. All right. I've been in elected position since 2002. And whether it was the school board or previous council, at least the person who was presiding knew how to run a meeting. Robert's Rules of Order. If you can't even run a meeting, then there will be chaos. And I have a problem with that. Because all you got to do is go back before you get in office. Just go watch a video and see how a meeting is conducted. And you can just learn from the video how to run a meeting. I learned Robert Rules of Order just as a little boy listening to my father when new members would join the church. He would say, all those in favor of the motion, let it be known by raising your right hand. If there are no questions, you can pick that up just in a Baptist church. So you got to know how to run a meeting. I think Lisa knows how to run a meeting. In fact, I know she does because I've seen her in action as she runs our meetings. And also, I believe that Lisa is more approachable, that you can at least talk to her. You may not agree with everything she does. And she definitely going to need Councilman Barnes and I up there to help keep her in check. Because Lisa flip-flop on you too now, okay? You all know that. Lisa, but we still love her. We still love her. She'll flip-flop, but we love her, okay? And so I'm voting for her. Even though Lisa, when she first got on, she said that I was just wagging, making noise, all this. But, you know, I keep telling y'all, you got to get beyond personality. See, y'all get caught up in personality. You got to look at what people stand for. Because I think all of us might say something that you didn't mean to say. You can't discount relationship over that. But too many of you have. And our city is suffering from it. We have an opportunity this election, I think, to correct some stuff. I told you we made a big mistake in 2016 when we didn't put Kenny Wright back in as mayor. Look at what has happened since then. You put John Rowe in, very conservative council. Okay. Then you were faced with some lesser or two evils because you all know how Mayor Glover came on the scene. See, some of y'all trying to act like you've forgotten, but you know how he came on the scene. He came on the scene when Kenny Wright and John Rowe were up for election. and a white power structure put him up on the ticket. Y'all may as well tell the truth. Shame the devil. And note here that if that's the context out of which you come, then you're not going to be able to stand for the people. You may stand for certain persons. And just like you all talk about this oligarchy in Russia and the rich folks in this country who are making the decisions, the same thing's happening in Portsmouth. There's always been just a certain group that's been in power. Question becomes now, who are we going to put in place that's not afraid to stand up to it? And I can tell you all this. Malcolm X said, you know, you ought to look at black folks. He said, I gravitate to the black folks who I see the white folks going against. And after all I've been through, false accusations, felony charges, they did everything they could to get me off council. And y'all ought to ask, why is that? Black and white participation. But I'm like DeAndre, here I am, still standing, and still speaking. Because ultimately, the position of city councilman doesn't make me. I was somebody before I came on city council. I'm somebody because of the one whose hands I'm in. And that's who I'm ultimately going to answer to. And so, regardless of what you may think, my ultimate responsibility, and that's why I don't change hats. I don't act one way on council and one way out there. I'm consistent. So ultimately, I know where my help comes from. And I know who has blessed me and who has kept me. And for those of you who have made false accusations, the mayor even went so far as to take criminal charges out against Barnes and I. Okay? And then you're going to talk about together? And you're trying to criminalize? Okay? Y'all better wake up. You better wake up and swallow your pride and see that you've been greatly deceived. That I have always stood on what has been right and what has been true. I don't have to lie to anybody because this position doesn't make me. And so I'm supporting Lisa. I hope she wins. She has a road to travel, but I hope the community sees that this is an important election and that this election could potentially correct the mistake we made in 2016.
All right, will y'all give them a round of applause? Okay.
To add to what Councilman Whitaker said, it can correct it or it can hurt it a lot more, and it can hurt the progress that we've made in the last 4 years. Our school system wasn't fully funded before 2021. That can change with the wrong people in office. We haven't had a summer jobs program probably since I was about 8 or 9. That can change with the wrong people in office because it was one person who was against it. And if he gets his way, the mayor is going to be gone. He was also against those children getting that free summer camp. He was also against our recreational centers getting redone. Anything that deals with our youth or with our children or when it comes to putting money back into the citizens' hands, he was against all of those things. I know some of us are friends with him, but you can be friends with him and tell him he's wrong. And if he gets his way, you can see us going back to 2016. I will go as far as to say we're going to go back to what it was before 1980. And that was when we only had one black council person.
All right. Is there anyone from the sitting audience who would like to ask a question before we get out of here tonight? I want to thank you all for coming, and I will just say this. We in trouble, Portsmouth. We are in big trouble. And I tell anybody, and I've shared this with you all as to why I'm supporting, I just the 7, 8 black people running combined with you all, I just don't understand how we can all say that we support public education and the miracle. And I tell people all the time, Dr. Brayson, when he got here, I think we had 6 schools accredited. And look at what he was able to do with opposition. Imagine what he could do with a council and a school board working for the betterment of public education. And the reason I said we're in trouble because I don't think any other sitting elected officials are brave enough to do what the two of you just did tonight. And I knew what I was doing by asking you all this, and you both are both mature enough to understand that the Lisa, Shannon, whomever, they won't be able to do what you all did and say, I'm supporting whoever. But it was important that people know, because a lot of black people, and I don't want y'all to think that I know more black people than y'all, but a lot of black people are asking me, why? Why is she running? Why? I like him. And now it makes sense, Vernon. It makes sense because you speak up too, but it makes sense. It's only 2, 3 of y'all that's bold enough to say what he's doing. And because nobody's really telling the story, people don't know. And the citizens at large is going to suffer. It will be crazy of me, regardless of whatever, to not support those whose track record I know have been for public education, and I want to raise every year of the employee. It makes no sense to me. So I would just hope that strategies would change. People's will eat. My grandmother would say, "Humble pie is the meal of the day," and recognize that we have to be strategic, because with as many black people running, we're going to get the wrong people elected. I'm just telling y'all the truth. We're going to get the wrong people elected. And I think those that have not yet served should take a seat back so that we can push forward. Because in order for us to have a black agenda, in order for us to have equity, we have to go with people's track records. And we know your track record for voting. We know your track record for voting when it comes down to public education, when it comes down to safety, when it comes down to things like that. And I think that's the most we can ask for. So first of all, thank the two of you for coming. Thank y'all for speaking truth to power. And y'all know they don't bite the tongues, because you heard him up here. He said 2016, and he looked directly at me when he said it. He ain't stammer or anything. He said it. So I think we all can appreciate the truth when we hear it and when we see it. And I look forward to the many opportunities that Portsmouth Public Schools will be able to offer our children and our children's children based upon the funding that a competent, equitable city council members will be able to support and do. Thank y'all for coming out. Please share this video. We need to share it as many times possible. It's on the Prince of Peace Church page. I told Pastor Carswell, y'all gonna have to dedicate a stained glass window to me, because I just love this church. But again, thank y'all so much for coming out, and we're out before 8 o'clock. God bless y'all. Have a good night.